All right, well, welcome to the Crypto Vigilante. We're here with the Emperor of Bitcoin, and we're going to be talking about a lot of awesome things today, right, Daniel?
That's right, Raphael.
Okay, great. So, you have been a figure in Bitcoin for quite some time, and you are what we would consider a Bitcoin OG, and you're pretty much leading the front in BSV in a lot of ways. And one thing that really comes to everyone's mind is, how is it that you, as an anarchist libertarian, someone that espouses Austrian economics, how is it that you're so involved with the BSV, Bitcoin Satoshi Vision, blockchain and network?
Yeah, well, okay, well, first of all, thanks for saying, and yes, I've been in Bitcoin 9 years, and the reason I'm involved in BSV is I want success, and BSV is the only coin that is actually doing anything successful. And as to being an anarchist, Bitcoin needs to be for everybody. So there shouldn't be an anarchist coin, and just as there shouldn't be like a Christian coin or a Muslim coin or a Jewish coin. Money is better if everybody uses it. The whole point is that people can specialize, and everybody does a small part of the economy, and they focus on their specialization, and they build for other people. So money is a way for people to benefit each other, and there's just more benefit if there's more people. So if you want to make Bitcoin successful, you have to want to cooperate with everybody. So people who disagree with you on ideology, you need to want to cooperate with these people. So we need Bitcoin to be money for the world.
So,
well, sorry, I thought of something else I want to say too, because being an anarchist does not mean that I think there should be no legal system. So my problem with the normal world's legal system is that I consider it to be a socialist legal system, because it's connected to the government. That means that it doesn't treat people like customers, and it's a lot more expensive than it needs to be. And ultimately, it serves the government more than people, I think. But I think that other anarchists in the crypto world have been acting like they don't want a legal system. Okay, well, that's not any good. What we would want, ideally, I think, is a legal system that is capitalist. But but you can't just pretend that the government doesn't exist and then not provide something better. But that's what I think other anarchists have been doing. I think that they've been just pretending that the government doesn't exist and not creating a viable alternative at all. So I mean, I think that anarchists in Bitcoin could have achieved a lot more than they did, but they were mostly distracted by really silly ideas that could never be successful.
So, what is your opinion on BTC?
Okay, well, so BTC does not work the way that Bitcoin was originally intended to. It doesn't follow the original idea. BTC is the result of collusion between the exchanges and the group of open source developers. Now, one of the key ideas in Bitcoin is the handicap principle, which says that that honest signals of fitness are associated with handicaps, with easily verifiable waste.
Yeah.
So that's proof of work. But what happened in BTC is the people producing the proof of work, i.e. the miners, did not act on their own. They didn't act on their own plans about how to make BTC successful. They allowed the open source developers to tell them what to do. But the open source developers do not produce proof of work. And that means that they can become deceptive. They can generate lies cheaply. The way that proof of work protects us from deception is by making talk expensive. So in the Bitcoin network, you can't make a block without proof of work. Okay, and if we didn't have that rule, it would be cheap to make blocks. So someone who wasn't dedicated to the success of the network could distract everybody with cheap blocks. That's basically what the open source developers did. Is they said they know what the rules should be, and everybody is supposed to go along with them. So BTC has turned into a pump and dump scam, or it's turned into a pumping scam. I don't know when the dumping is going to happen, but BTC is a coin that is not good for anything, and it's entirely founded upon lies. It preys upon people who will believe what other people tell them without thinking about it. Okay, so one of the things that people in BTC believe in is digital gold. Well, originally digital gold was just a metaphor. The idea was to explain the idea of Bitcoin as money, because gold can be a form of money that isn't run by the government. Okay, but BTC can't be money because of small blocks. So the original idea of digital gold no longer applies. Now instead they think that BTC is valuable, like how gold is today. But gold is not valuable today because it is a form of money. It's valuable because of its physical properties and because of its scarcity and its durability, and it also has industrial purposes. But it isn't used as money. It's valuable as it can be used as a store of value, but it's not money. But BTC does not have physical properties like gold does. You cannot create a second gold. There is no alt gold. That's what makes gold secure as a store of value, is physics. Okay, but there's no physics behind BTC. BTC is a pure idea. It's a digital asset.
Right, but it doesn't. BTC also has proof of work, and the counter argument to it, to what you're saying right now, is that BTC does have the majority of hash power right now.
But
so
handicaps are correlated with fitness. They are not automatically the same thing as fitness. So what they've done in BTC is find lots of people who can just be tricked into buying BTC no matter what happens. So they're like the hodlers of last resort, right? So that drives the price up. That means that it's worth more to miners to mine it, even though it's actually useless.
Right, and that's kind of this. You're actually alluding to the same argument that they would have, that it's users that call the shots, and users do have a place, and they talk about the importance of what the user activated soft fork was, which is, there's truth in that. There's truth that, users do matter, but at the end of the day, miners are the ones that are really responsible for the health of the network.
Okay, the user. Okay, well, this is a game, okay, that plays out over years, over long times, and a user who doesn't understand how the game works is just killing himself. And the game is not based on what anybody dictates. It's based on what is actually economically viable.
Correct, and the miners are the best to determine that.
No, nobody determines it. What determines it is reality. It's the way things work in reality. Nobody determines it.
But what is the market oracle to...
There is no market oracle. You just have to understand the game and predict the future and make the right decisions. And right now, people are being tricked into not doing that. Okay? There is no market oracle. This is a future prediction contest. And the only way to there is no way to know the future. Okay? So what we do is we make bets on the future. So what's going on in BTC is everybody is saying that I bet BTC will be successful. Because remember, prices are just expectations. Prices are not genuine success. They're just expectations of success. So what's going on in BTC is that everybody has been manipulated into betting on BTC's future. That doesn't change BTC's future. If lots of people bet on its future now, that doesn't mean that it can possibly be successful, which it can't. So what's happening now is like a game of poker where one of the players has convinced the others that 2 pair is better than a royal flush. Well, it's not. Okay? You can't really change the rules of the game. In poker, of course, the rules of the game they're just whatever people say they are. But in Bitcoin, the rules of the game are ultimately real economics. They're not just rules that people can make up to be whatever they want them to be. They're rules that make people want to work together. That's not what BTC has.
Correct. But won't miners eventually choose to support the chain that is most profitable?
Well, ultimately, miners have to figure out what will be the most profitable in the future.
Right.
So they're not they don't dictate what is most profitable. They just lose as businesses if they are unable to figure out what's going to be the most profitable.
Correct. And so it would follow that from your assessment, BTC won't be profitable for miners in the future.
No. BTC is a socialist economy. It's an economy where trade cannot happen, and that's completely centrally controlled by the open source developers who do not produce proof of work. They're simply cheap talkers who manipulate everybody with concern trolling.
Okay, so why do you think miners did not step in and put a stop to the open source developers?
Well, that's
taking over.
That's a good question, and I think that I think that very few people in Bitcoin actually thought about the economics of the system. So I think that miners were thinking in terms of short-term profit, and when the user activated soft fork happened, they were thinking about what would make them money in the short term. And what that would be is pleasing the users. But what the users wanted would ultimately destroy the whole system.
So what's your opinion post-fork about Bitcoin Cash?
So Bitcoin Cash was a similar takeover attempt to BTC, only it's not quite as bad. BTC is like pure communism, and BCH is more like a third world dictatorship. And in the people in BCH are people who want to be important, and they are willing to keep their economy small in order to ensure that they can be the most important people. And this is classic narcissism. So if the important people in BCH moved over to BSV, they would no longer be important. They wouldn't be able to do things that are as interesting as what's happening in BCH. So they don't want to be there. So BCH is a completely toxic community that's full of people who want to be they want to be the biggest fish in a small pond. They would rather have that than have a big pond. Okay, what we need is a big pond. And let's talk a little bit about the technicals of BCH. So
sure.
One thing that they did in BCH was introduce a sorted transaction ordering. Now I don't remember what they called it. I think it was LTOR or something. I don't remember what that stands for. And that makes it much more difficult to design blocks, because every new transaction is a much bigger computation, because you have to sort it in the block and then re-Merkleize everything. In BSV, when you see a new transaction, you just put it at the end of the block you're making. That means there is no sorting operation, and you don't have to re-Merkleize everything. You just have to make the Merkle branch for just that path, for the path of the new transaction. So it's much quicker, and much bigger blocks are possible. And so they've unscaled the system just like BTC, only not quite as bad, because they're not just having a set limit on size. They just made it much more difficult to have big blocks. Oh, and let's talk a little bit about the Lightning Network too.
Okay, but before we get there, let me ask you something. You mentioned about the toxicity within different communities. I think that there are toxic people in all communities. My question is what would make, you're partial to BSV, so what would make BSV's toxic people more tolerable than other toxic people in other communities?
Well, I think that you're right that there are toxic people in every community. But what matters is who has control. So the way that money is supposed to work is you are supposed to invent new ideas. You're supposed to figure out new ways of getting more of it. So it's about seeking profit. And when you seek profit, nobody else controls you. It's your imagination, and it's your responsibility to do it right. And that's what we can do in BSV. So yes, there are toxic people in BSV, but they do not prevent you from being your own leader.
And this is because the protocol is stable.
Right. The protocol is stable and the
Fixed.
block size is unlimited. So there's somebody else who is profit seeking in a stupid way. That doesn't stop you from doing things in an intelligent way. So instead of worrying about toxic people in BSV, you just need to find your own creativity. You need to find your own value. You don't have to worry about them. But in the other coins, you do have to worry about them because they control the system.
Right. Yeah, so it's interesting to me to look back at Bitcoin history and to think about how influential Ethereum has been, and at the same time realizing that everything that people are attempting to do on Ethereum and everything that people have attempted to do on Ethereum are things that we've known to be possible on Bitcoin itself. And it's interesting to now finally see people creating those types of applications on BSV where it's not possible on Bitcoin Cash or BTC. Well, what do you think about that? What do you have to say about that? And what's your opinion on Ethereum?
So Ethereum is a very malicious community. So well, the one good thing about Ethereum is that when Ethereum came out, it really made me see how malicious the BTC core developers were.
Why is that?
Because they didn't want to compete with Ethereum.
Oh, I see.
They didn't want to enable what Ethereum can do on Bitcoin. They wanted to ensure that there could be no trade. So Ethereum was the first, or one of the first ICOs. And so when it was being built, I thought that it was going to be an exit scam. And I thought that they were all going to disappear with the money because Ethereum was so obviously a scam that I didn't think that they would actually do anything. So that isn't what happened. What happened was ICOs got really big. Ethereum was the first big one, and there just ended up being more and more ICOs.
Right.
Now, one thing that I wish I had talked about more was why ICOs are scams. So, if you're a big free market person, what you can say is, in a free market, people should be able to do ICOs, but they're illegal for a reason, and they are illegal because they're unregistered securities, and they're pretending to be like stocks when really they are more like Chuck E. Cheese tokens that you win by playing the games.
Right.
And there's no reason that an ICO should go up if the developers of the coin do anything good, because there are not dividends with ICOs. The reason the stock of a company goes up when the managers of the company do better is that there are dividends. That's what connects the value of the stock to the company. The ICOs don't have that. They're pure speculative vehicles that depend only on other people buying them. That's the only reason. That's the only reason they go up is other people don't realize that they're not stocks. So they're pure speculative vehicles with no no value that's connected to. So what people say is you need to use the coin to buy the service of the network. Well, that doesn't mean that the coin goes up, because people can just hold bitcoins, which I mean BSV. They can hold those until they're ready to use the service of the network. Then they can get the ICO coins for an instantaneously small amount of time, and they use them to buy the service. So if the service is good, that doesn't mean that the coin goes up. So Ethereum is the scam that keeps on scamming, and they believe, or they say that they believe that code is law in Ethereum, which really means that the developer is a dictator, because the developer is the one who makes the code. Okay, so I think that code is law is code for we're a dictatorship.
Oh yeah, remember the DAO hack, right?
Right. I was just going to mention that, because there was a disclaimer that originally appeared on the DAO website, which said that there is no definition of the DAO other than the code, the Solidity code. That's the only definition of the contract of the DAO. Well, when the DAO got hacked, they got rid of that, because they changed the rules afterwards.
Yeah,
so
they changed everything afterwards.
they don't really believe that code is law, but they do really believe that the developer is a dictator.
Yeah, I was told by one of the creators of Ethereum, and I'm not going to name him, and he was actually one of the main guys who was in charge of making the call to fork the Ethereum blockchain. And he said that the reason why they chose to literally become central planners and reroute the entire chain was because, this was what he said, was that if I had to explain it to my grandmother, what would I have said? So it's like, it really came down to their prerogative, and yeah, it really did become code as law, and the developer did become, in a sense, a tyrant, and that's something that I kind of want to talk to you about, kind of going back to your question earlier, in terms of who determines reality, right? You mentioned, when I asked you what the market oracle was, and you said, well, reality is reality. And it seems to me like all of this central planning that happens in crypto stems from the desire of making code law, and for the developers to become central planners for any excuse, right? Sometimes they're central planners for the sake of decentralization, or any other excuse, right?
Yes.
But the thing is that I central planning in crypto becomes more and more overt the further you move away from pure proof of work.
Correct. Yeah. So what's very unfortunate about Bitcoin is it seems like almost nobody understands the problem that Bitcoin was designed to solve.
And what is that problem, if you were able to define it?
Well, the problem is central planning.
Correct.
The problem is according to the white paper, the problem is relying on trusted third parties to handle payments. And what Bitcoin solves this problem by creating a network in which all parties, all members, all nodes are competing for more centrality. So there is no center, rather everyone is trying to be the center at the same time. There's no designated center. And the problem that Bitcoin solves is actually much bigger than the one that is defined in the white paper. Because I would say that Bitcoin solves all central planning. But what we've seen from the history of Bitcoin is people don't want to be away from central planning. They do not want to escape the problem that Bitcoin solves. And I think that this has to do with human instinct. And I think that humans have instincts for a military organization. And a military organization is centrally planned. There is a general at the top, and the general is supposed to have an overview of the whole war, and he knows everything that's happening. Then he issues orders to parts of the military. They're supposed to carry them out, and a hub and spokes network is the shape of these centrally planned networks.
Right.
And an important property of them is that the hub is the only node that has a global view of the network. And the spokes are dependent on the hub for telling them what everything looks like. And I think that what we've seen is that people want someone to tell them what reality looks like, even though they can be abused by this style of organization. They are not interested in leaving it because they do not have the instincts to develop their own global view. But that's what they have to do.
Right. So I this is the way I see it, Daniel. I see that people have been miseducated and that they think that censorship resistance is solved by decentralization. And in reality, censorship resistance is solved by competition, by open market competition.
Correct. And I think that there's also a misunderstanding about what decentralization means. So there is what they're trying to achieve in BTC is that there are many different nodes, and of course they do not define node in the same way as the Bitcoin white paper, because in the white paper a node is a miner, whereas in BTC they believe that a node is anybody who has the whole blockchain, even if they're not producing blocks.
Right.
But they think that there's value in being in having a large number of nodes, but most of those nodes are not providing any kind of service to one another.
Yeah, they don't extend the ledger at all.
Yeah.
They're just I call them do-it-yourself block explorers.
Right.
Yeah, that's all they are.
Yeah.
That's it.
If you're a miner, you're providing service not just to the users, but to the other miners. One thing that, there can never be an interruption of service in the Bitcoin network. And the miners need to rely on each other to ensure that there isn't an interruption of service. Because every individual node can go down at some point. But we can't have the whole network go down.
Right.
We can't have one miner go down. So they're all relying on each other and providing service to one another.
Yeah.
And they're competing to be better at providing the service. And people in BTC, they say that there's going to be collusion of miners to lie about the blockchain.
That would be suicidal.
Right. It's just stupid. Like, if you're a miner and you realize that the other miners are not telling the truth about what's in the blockchain, well, you can provide better service by telling the truth. So that's more profit for you.
Yep. It's just, so a lot of this comes down to not understanding the value of what Bitcoin is as an economic system. I call it a capitalist meritocracy. That's what I call mining.
Yeah, very much so. Well, do you have a question?
So, let's go back to, when I asked you, what is the ultimate oracle then for, what is it that Bitcoin solves? And when I ask myself that question, I answer that question by saying that what Bitcoin solves for us is the ability to identify who are those in the market with whom best to associate with via proof of work, right? Because in an adversarial network, right, like the blockchain, in a Byzantine fault-tolerant network, I can figure out who the honest nodes are via proof of work. So I'm not easily deceived by user-activated soft forks. I am not easily deceived by marketing. I can trust proof of work itself as a way to verify that indeed the securing of the blockchain is being taken place and that I'm being offered the best service possible, right?
Yeah, well, so proof of work is kind of like the first thing that you should look at. So someone isn't trustworthy because they're producing proof of work, but over time, dishonest actors who produce proof of work will lose. They will ultimately be unable to continue producing proof of work.
Correct.
So you look at the proof of work first, but that shouldn't be the only thing that you look at. You still need to look a little more closely to decide whether you think somebody is trustworthy. But in general, someone who doesn't want to produce proof of work isn't trustworthy, because proof of work is correlated with fitness. And someone who doesn't want to do proof of work doesn't want to give you an honest signal of fitness. What he wants is for you to believe that he is fit without proving it.
And that's what's interesting about everything that happens. Because if you, okay, look, Daniel, I think the best way to juxtapose something, to really understand something like proof of work, it would be really good to compare it to its complete opposite, like like proof of stake, as it happened with EOS, right? And there was an attempt through delegated proof of stake to create some sort of democratic process, or where whoever held the coin, where holding of the coin was akin to holding shares, percentages of shares in a company, and the amount of coin that you held was indicative of how great what percentage of the vote you had within the system, right? And it turned out that a cartel formed where there was vote buying, right? And till this day, they have not been able to clean up that mess. And so they looked to their central authority, to their war general, who is Dan. Gosh, I forgot his name right now. Dan Laramere, and his solution to the vote buying cartel was to rename vote buying by calling it something else. And that's all he did. And so there's still a vote buying cartel in EOS. And that has been like the biggest, most I think it has been the biggest, most robust example of proof of stake. And it's incredible to me that Ethereum is moving towards a proof of stake system. And maybe you can shed light in what the difference is between spending energy versus spending money. And maybe in the game theory that comes out of putting money up at stake versus spending energy as proof of work that has already been done in securing the network.
Right. Yes. So proof of work means that you lose with 100% probability initially. But if you do things well, then there's a chance that you can gain later. But you must lose first. That's proof of work.
You spend energy first.
Right.
And the energy's gone.
You can never get it back.
You can never get it back. Whereas in proof of stake, you can put the money up at stake and you can always retrieve the money.
The 100% chance of loss with proof of work is what forces people to be honest and to behave well, because they have to make that value back, and that value can only be made back over time. But if you don't have an amount that needs to be made back, you can think in a much more short-term time frame, and you can buy votes, because the proof of stake system does not have honesty as the optimal outcome. So in the handicap game, honesty is optimal because more fit individuals can afford bigger handicaps, and they benefit more from attention because they have better offers. So they optimize at higher levels of proof of work. But if you don't have that, you don't have a game anymore where honesty is optimal. So there will always be some way of gaining by dishonesty.
So I've always seen the Lightning Network as an attempt to move away from, I mean, it obviously is an off-chain development of a second layer where they're not obviously building on-chain. They're not really taking the Bitcoin protocol and the Bitcoin blockchain to its ultimate logical conclusion, but they're limiting the block size and they're building on a second layer. So in a sense, BTC, would you say then that BTC is moving away from the honesty of proof of work by building on a second layer?
Yes. So in Bitcoin, there is no routing problem, because all of the miners just send their transaction to everybody else. They want to send the transaction to as many other miners as possible, because that means those miners will accept their blocks more easily. And this is possible because of proof of work. Because there's this costly signal, the miners have a sense of what connections are worth investing in. So a miner that produces lots of blocks is worth developing a strong connection with. That's very, very fast and reliable. Then you get those blocks more quickly. With the Lightning Network, there isn't a signal like that. and the task of routing transactions through the network becomes a problem of each node understanding the current state of the network. But that state is constantly changing because there's constantly payments being run through it. So nobody really knows the current state. They kind of have to guess at it. And what results from this game is another hub and spokes system. Because if you have a hub and spokes, then the hub gets to have a global view. But there isn't a way for the nodes of the Lightning Network to gain a global view fast enough.
So it's important to note that the Lightning Network does not work via proof of work. The Lightning Network is something that happens outside the Bitcoin miners. So transactions that happen within the Lightning Network itself never go through Bitcoin miners. They're transactions that only happen within the Lightning hubs themselves. And economically speaking, these transaction fees that occur between the Lightning Network are transaction fees that would have been mining fees for the miners if those transactions would have not have happened within a second layer. So the only time that the Lightning Network ever touches a miner is when closing and opening a Lightning channel, and that's only putting money in a wallet, while not a Bitcoin, but while a representation of the Bitcoin held in that wallet is transferred within the Lightning Network, right?
Yes, that's a good point. The Lightning Network is a parasite on Bitcoin because the Lightning nodes are earning fees that would have gone to miners. And it's a parasite, and it can't exist without the Bitcoin network. So it's just killing the BTC network. And it also requires central planning. So every time BTC scales a little bit, all kinds of new technology will have to be created by the core developers. It's not a system that works naturally. So let's see, Craig Wright compared the Lightning Network to, now I don't remember what it was, but there's a kind of plant is a parasite on a tree that will strangle the tree, and eventually there will just be a dead tree with this vine around it. I don't remember what it was called now, but it's like that.
So obviously, as you can tell from this conversation, we're both big blockers, and we're partial to scaling Bitcoin on chain, and we are, for the most part, mining maximalists, if you were to call us anything. And it's interesting that we at least now have a different approach in how Bitcoin is to scale, because for a while there, it became a political fight over control of the network. And no matter what happens, and no matter what has happened, the best thing going for the Bitcoin miners in general is that we have these competing options in the market now. So you brought up Craig Wright, and he's been one heck of a figure, to say the least, and very divisive figure. And it seems to me like even within BSV, we're starting to see factions form, but the factions that form within BSV are different in the sense because everyone agrees on the most important aspects of that Bitcoin should be a fixed protocol, and that ultimately the capitalist meritocracy of mining is what defines what's best for the network. Is there anything you would want to say on the topic of Craig Wright?
Yeah. Okay. So in a like in Bitcoin, you are your own leader. Okay, we already talked about that. It's you're supposed to imagine some new way of gaining profit. So other people are not your leader. And Craig Wright is deliberately acting like not a leader, like someone who is seeking profit and who is not leading other people, which is what he should be doing.
So are you saying that he acts like a jerk on purpose?
Yes, but he also is a jerk. I think he's just acting naturally.
Oh yeah.
But he is not acting like someone who wants to convince everybody that he has knowledge. Because really, if you have knowledge, you want to keep it hidden until you've created your business. Because you don't want other people to copy you, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if you're a central planner, you need to constantly convince everybody that you are trustworthy and that you know everything. Okay? That's not what Craig Wright does. So one of the things so people who argue against BSV are unable to exit the mindset of central planning, even though that's really what this is all about. And they make arguments about Craig Wright that have to do with his inadequacy as a central planner. So they say Craig Wright isn't trustworthy. Craig Wright hasn't proved that he's Satoshi. Craig Wright says stupid things like negative gamma. Well, who cares? You're supposed to be your own leader. So you don't need somebody who's a good central planner if you join BSV. Well, if you do need that, then you shouldn't join BSV. That's really how I should say it.
Yeah.
If you want a good central planner, stay away from it.
I really think that the best projects in BSV are not even the best projects in BSV have nothing to do with Calvin or Craig Wright.
Yeah,
which is interesting, right? Like, so the best projects have nothing to do with them. It just goes to show you that that the creativity is open-ended, right? That you can be your own leader in BSV.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I mean, gosh, I don't want this video to come across as if like we're here promoting BSV, because we're not. We really like Bitcoin, and we really are. Just the fact that we're talking about this is in itself a costly signal. We are putting ourselves at odds with the vast majority of crypto, which has been, in a sense, not thinking for themselves. And everything that Craig Wright is saying has said, and what we're talking about here is nothing new within Bitcoin. Mike Hearn was talking about this for a long time. I was always of the mindset that everything that they've been trying to do on Ethereum has always been possible on Bitcoin. So the fact that there are some of us that still hold to everything that is possible within the Bitcoin blockchain does not make us, I don't think, partial to a certain camp, but makes us partial to the original idea of what was possible within Bitcoin from the get-go, you know?
Correct.
Like,
yeah.
It's like now it's not that we are like the exception. It's like there's always been OG Bitcoiners that have had this perspective. You know what I mean?
Right.
We are not an anomaly.
Right. So, well,
and I think that's important to point out.
In 2013, there was an economy in BTC that was growing, but it was destroyed by the small blockers. So that right now in BTC, they deny that this ever happened. They deny that there was ever an economy that they destroyed, but there was. And what we're doing in BSV is creating an economy again. And BSV is Satoshi vision. It's not Craig Wright vision. So Craig Wright has lots of ideas that he wants to build on BSV. But other people have different ideas.
I love your idea, and maybe we should talk about that.
Okay,
so,
well, thanks.
So Daniel, look, Daniel is...
Oh, wait, one more thing. Sorry,
Sure,
what you said about not promoting BSV. Well, I am promoting BSV, but
Right.
I don't want people who are going to be these toxic speculators who want a central planner like we had in BTC. I want to promote BSV to entrepreneurs, to people who want to make Bitcoin successful, who want Bitcoin to be money for the world. Okay, so everybody is lying about what BSV is about right now, because what they have is so worthless in comparison.
Well, just look at Ethereum, right? Ethereum is, and I've always criticized it as, it's nothing more than a coupon economy. And I told you this a couple weeks ago, and you laughed, but it's true. Every time a new Ethereum token exists, it's suicidal in its own existence, because its mere existence is already in competition with other ERC20 tokens on the Ethereum network. And they're all competing for space. They're all clogging up the network. And monetarily speaking, they're all competing with each other as units of account. So,
Right.
so it makes more sense to have the vision, big blocker perspective that we've always had in Bitcoin, which is you use one single unit of account for all of the applications that you create on chain. That makes a lot more sense. And like that, you don't have a coupon economy. Could you imagine trading your bread token for a chicken token? You know?
Yeah.
That's kind of like what Ethereum is and has always been. And so I'm really happy that BSV exists. I really am. And for all of you out there talking about, well, it's not, it's BSV's transparent, BSV is open to surveillance. Okay, cool. Great argument. We can talk about that some other time. But so is Ethereum. Ethereum is completely transparent. So is BTC. So is Bitcoin Cash. So is EOS, right? So is the vast majority of cryptocurrencies, actually. Even Zcash. So, yeah, we're talking about the difference between central planning and a capitalist meritocracy, which is our perspective on Bitcoin. Bitcoin as a capitalist meritocracy, and how that is achieved. And its ultimate manifestation has been BSV. Whether you like it or not, that is the truth.
The problem of socialism, according to von Mises, is the lack of profit seeking. And what results from that is there's no system of the profit and loss system is what causes prices to change. So in a socialist system, the prices of capital goods are meaningless, and thus there is nothing forcing people to use capital goods in an efficient way, and hence they're always used inefficiently.
Correct.
There's really no knowledge of efficiency in the
Exactly.
socialist system.
Yep.
And prices, well, a function of money is to be the unit in which prices are reported. So if we have a bunch of different competing monies, then we also don't have a price system. We only have a price system when we have one money. And I think that people in crypto have been acting like they think the dollar is still their unit of account, which to me is not treating Bitcoin like money. If we believe in the idea that Bitcoin can be money, then that is the unit in which we should report prices. And that's the unit in which we should seek profit. That's using it as money. And you can do that with BSV. You can't do that with any of the other coins because they are all limited in various ways. And you wouldn't want to because they're all centrally controlled. So you could spend a lot of time profit seeking only to find that the rules have changed so that there isn't any point in having that coin anymore.
This is a segue. I want to use that same argument from von Mises to say one thing. The way that we best can determine what is best for the network is through mining itself. And it is ridiculous that in my opinion, that in BTC and in Bitcoin Cash, they call any entrepreneurial use of the blockchain that is not in line with the dictates of the central developers as spamming the network. And my question is, who are you to tell me what spamming the network is? That is for the free market to decide, right? You just said it.
Right.
It is the price of the network. The prices are measured in the free market. And those who best determine what is best for the network are the miners, in my opinion.
Right. I mean, if you're providing good value as a miner, that changes what you think of as spam. Okay?
Exactly.
So that means you can accept transactions in a much greater volume at a much lower price. So if you're an incompetent miner, then you can only do 1 megabyte blocks. But if you're trying to be better, then that changes what spam is. So what I've been working on is a way for, proof of work is useful for more than just Bitcoin. So what I've been working on is a way for the Bitcoin ASIC machines to be used for more purposes. So I've designed a way that we can encode a hash puzzle in a Bitcoin transaction that is compatible with the existing infrastructure, which means that any Bitcoin miner can also sell proof of work for any other purpose. And what my system does not say what the other purpose is, it simply makes the service available. And so I see proof of work as a handicap that can be demonstrated over the internet. And a handicap is the first step in any evaluation of fitness, or I should say it is the optimal first step in any evaluation of fitness. And what it's good for is limiting information down to an amount that you can reasonably deal with. Because we're all dealing with information overload. What would be useful is if we could throw away information we don't want without looking at it. And handicaps are the best way of doing this.
So here, let me explain what Daniel's doing in layman terms. Daniel created a system where you could use Bitcoin proof of work itself as a way to attach spent energy to any message or any transaction of value on the internet.
When we demand that people show us proof of work, that requires the candidate to make a strategic choice. Because he has to choose how much work to demonstrate. So, and if he buys too much proof of work, then he loses too much energy. But if he buys too little, then he doesn't get enough attention.
Right, so energy is attached to messages. And that serves as a way to prove honesty via an adversarial network.
Yeah.
So what you're doing is you created a system where honesty is incentivized.
Right.
And
or I should say, what handicaps incentivize honesty. I created a system where you can use the handicap for whatever you want. but I'm not saying what people want to be honest about. It's just whatever you want it for. And what I'm going to use it for is to make an upvote system. And the reason I want to do that is we had all of these BTC trolls who don't produce proof of work take over our Bitcoin on Reddit. So what's going to happen when we use proof of work as an upvote system is you can't just control the narrative anymore. If you want to say something, you have to make that strategic choice, and you are forced to select an amount of proof of work that is correlated with your own assessment of fitness. And if you're wrong, then you lose. So that doesn't mean that there won't be deception at all anymore, but it means that people who try to deceive lose a lot faster.
So if you create a message and you put spent energy, proof of work behind that message, and you spend all that money and all that energy for that message, and I disprove your message and I show the world that you were wrong in that assessment, you lost all that spent energy, and people will put more energy behind my message that disproves yours.
Correct.
So you're constantly looking for truth, and energy, it becomes a signal of strength behind the messages that are put out on the internet.
Yeah, it's antlers for memes.
Explain that analogy.
Well, antlers are costly signals. They're handicaps that are used to signal fitness. So it's kind of like the idea that has proof of work attached to it. That's a meme, and the proof of work is like the antlers. So when we have an upvote system, that's like a territorial contest between these memes with antlers.
So the what Daniel's creating right now is actually very revolutionary, and this is really why I wanted to have him on the show, is to explain this, because he's building the building blocks for anyone out there to create applications or to adopt it to their business models. What he's done is he's been able to take proof of work to its logical conclusion in categorizing value in general and information based on proof of work. So it's using the handicap principle of spent energy to put to categorize the value of truth, of seeking, how would he say it, seeking knowledge, of categorizing what's valuable and what's not valuable, what's true and what's not true.
Well, it's just it's about limiting information to an amount that you have time to read. And the problem we have now is everybody is trying to get your attention, and we don't have an honest way of getting attention right now. What we have is lots of dishonesty. So outside of Bitcoin, well, and inside too, there's lots of people who are trying to control the narrative. And when talk is no longer cheap, it's no longer beneficial to control the narrative with lies. It's beneficial to tell the truth. And when we use it as an upvote system, what will happen is some people, it just tells you what order you should read messages in. So some people will read the top 10, and some people will read the top 100, and some people will read the top 10,000. So if you want to evaluate lots of ideas, then you read further down the list, and that's where you're going to find unexamined ideas that are worth promoting a little farther. So as we go down the list, the rankings of ideas will become less correct. So there will be more opportunity to move better ideas higher up.
So Daniel, Do you have any competitors, any partnerships?
There's 21E8, and they're doing another proof of work kind of thing, but I think that what they're doing is adapted to different purposes than what I'm doing. So what we get with Boost is everything is compared to the entire Bitcoin economy. The reason that I want to do this is because it feels like all of the time I've been in Bitcoin, nobody wants to talk about how to make Bitcoin more valuable. So everybody is just pumping these coins with stupid crap. And what I want to talk about is what actually makes Bitcoin better. Okay, well, when we compare everything to the whole Bitcoin economy, then that's what we're going to talk about. We're going to talk about things that actually make the economy better. And if you don't, then you lose energy. So proof of work has a different, or 21E8 has a different proof of work system, and ultimately it would be possible for their system to be as efficient as the Bitcoin mining system, but new software and new ASIC machines would have to be developed for that. Well, I'm not sure exactly. We might just need new firmware, not new ASIC machines, because it's still 21, or it's still SHA-256. Alliances. Well, I've been working with my company Matterpool, and we have an alliance with Twitch. They're going to implement this system once we get it running to full speed.
Wow,
So,
congratulations. That's pretty big.
okay,
Twitch
well, thanks.
is a big deal now.
Yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. So this is a great entrepreneurial opportunity for anyone that wants to better the world of social media. What Daniel pretty much is creating is a way to rank value on the internet using the Bitcoin Nakamoto consensus. Guys, this is incredible. This is huge. This is what can redefine. This is what honestly can take out Google. If you guys ever wanted to take out Google and how they're able to, rank the search engine, I guess, what do you think of a search engine using Boost? What do you think of that? How is that possible?
Well, yeah, I mean, ultimately that's kind of, we can attach tags to content with the Boost signal. So you can search by tags, and you can find content that has the tag associated with it, and then that will be organized by proof of work.
So what other products does Matterpool have right now?
Well, there's Bitcoin files, and then there's a general blockchain service. So we have every kind of blockchain query that you would want to make, and then Bitcoin files is kind of like an alternative to Dropbox that uses the blockchain.
So you store your files up on the Bitcoin SV blockchain?
Yes.
Awesome.
So what I've been having a problem with is all of the ideas that have been coming out in crypto have been very stupid. Well, not all of them, but we've just had wave after wave of really, really stupid ideas, and people keep believing that these ideas are good because they successfully pump up coins, or I should say they appear to. You can't prove that they actually did that, but it appears that the coins get pumped up because of the ideas that people are promoting. But prices are expectations of success. They're not real success. So what I'm looking for are people who are motivated by real success. And real success is Bitcoin becoming money. In other words, the general medium of exchange. And higher prices do not mean that that is happening. Someone who is motivated by success would be happy with higher prices if they are actually associated with Bitcoin getting closer to success. But that's not what's been happening. What we've had is prices that have nothing to do with success. So what I want is for people to speculate better, do a better job taking money from people who don't understand what success is.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
So we're nearing the hyperinflation of the dollar. We've been expecting that for years. And you said something, we were having this conversation yesterday, and you said something very interesting. You said that you pretty much asked what has happened every time a country has had hyperinflation throughout history. And the answer to that is that we've always ended up with some sort of horrible tyranny.
Right.
What do we do, Daniel? How do we prepare for that?
Yes. Okay. Good question. So, yes. So this is why I think success in Bitcoin is so urgent, because Bitcoin can make people happy, and when people are unhappy, that's when they start supporting dictators. And when we have some kind of hyperinflationary event, then that means that the government gets weak and there's opportunity for some dictator to take over, and people will be feeling very unhappy, so they're going to be easily tricked into supporting this dictator. And I think that things have been going very badly lately, and I think people have not been focusing on some very serious problems that we've been having. When we have one of these hyperinflationary events, as I said, there's opportunity for somebody to take over. Well, there's actually opportunity for Bitcoiners to take over.
Yeah, let's take over.
But not with a coup, not with violence. We take over by providing for other people. So Bitcoin is a voluntary system. We need to make Bitcoin into a voluntary system that people want to join.
Well,
okay?
People will ask, how can Bitcoin provide for public goods?
Okay, well, yes. So Bitcoin mining is a business model for providing public goods. So one thing that we can do with Bitcoin is, if government services fail, we can start providing them, and we can prevent people from being left without service, which will make them want dictators. We can have a good economy even when the government is failing, but we're pretty far from that point now. So we need people who want to be entrepreneurs to get to that point. So let me explain a little bit about how that works. So we talked about the handicap principle. What I said is that handicaps are correlated with fitness, and so I recommend the books Handicap Principle by Zahavi, and then there's also an important paper by Graffin called Biological Signals as Handicaps, if you want to learn more about that. Okay, so now we need to talk about miner fitness. And the way mining works is you have some money that you want to invest in a mining operation. You have to spend some of it on ASIC machines and some of it on ensuring that those ASIC machines earn money. And the ASIC machines, those are the handicap, and the rest of the money, that's like the body, that's like the rest of the animal. And so that's what you use to ensure that you are fit as a mining operation. How do miners earn income? Well, they earn out of the entire economy. They earn from every transaction that happens. So they earn from the macroeconomic state of the Bitcoin economy. So if they can spend some of that other money in order to ensure that the economy increases, then that's better for them. If the economy as a whole grows, then all of the miners grow.
Would that be a public good?
Well, they do not have to spend that money on something that directly earns income, do they? They can grow the economy even with something that doesn't earn them income. They get income because they have the ASIC machines. So that's how Bitcoin is a business model for providing public goods. And if you as a miner can grow the economy, if you know how to do that, you can afford to spend more on ASIC machines because you're more fit. So you can signal higher fitness. So what will ultimately happen is miners will be in competition to provide the best public goods, because if they can do that, they can spend more on hash power. And so right now, we don't have entrepreneurs who want to do that. We don't have very many, but we need people who want to be entrepreneurs, and we need people who understand economics in order to do that, because Bitcoin mining is about macroeconomics, and Austrian economics is the correct economics as far as I'm concerned. But what we've seen is not very many Austrians who want to become Bitcoin entrepreneurs. Well, we need a lot more. And I think we've had a problem with libertarians who believe in the spontaneous order of the market, but who don't want to be a part of that order. Okay? Well, we need people who want to create order, and that means putting your own money down and taking calculated risk and earning profit.
So what you're saying is to not just believe in spontaneous order, but to get out into the market and create the order yourself.
Right. And if you know economics, you should be a better Bitcoin entrepreneur. And I've had a problem with libertarians who just want to be academics, who just want to complain about being oppressed by the government. Well, that's the slave mentality. We need libertarians who want to be successful. And they need to be successful in the market, not just successful at promoting libertarian ideas. They need to want to be successful at earning lots of money. And really, we need people who will want to keep earning money even if after they have so much of it that they don't really need anymore, because there's so much that's not being done.
Right.
And profits are payment for superior knowledge. Well, if you still have superior knowledge, you have to keep earning profit, even if you've already got a lot, because otherwise people won't do it.
Daniel, I think we have less than 1 minute left. I want to thank you for being with us. Is there any parting words that you would want to... We're going to have all of his information in the description below. Is there anything in the last seconds that you want to say?
Well, just thank you for having me. It was
very
nice
welcome
talking to you.
Thank you, Daniel. Guys, thank you for tuning in. And yeah, let's keep being critical. Let's keep examining crypto. Let's really come to a better understanding of what Bitcoin was to begin with. And let's all really take a step back and be humble about what we know. And let's challenge each other to learn more about Bitcoin. Thank you, Danny, for being with us.
Okay, great parting words. Thank you.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.